What's up, dudes? Welcome back to the channel. Exciting news, we have a new Hearthstone expansion on the horizon. This is Descent of Dragons. So if you're Brian Kibler, you're gonna be loving life right now. This expansion is all about dragons. Plenty of cards been revealed already, so we're gonna take a look into them. And I'll give my initial thoughts on each one of them. Ysera Unleashed. 9 mana 4/12. Battlecry, shuffle 7 Dream Portals into your deck when drawn. Summon a random dragon. See the card here. So first impressions, this card is very, very slow. Not only when you play this card, it doesn't have taunt, doesn't have any effect on the board, doesn't give you any cards into hand. You may not draw the dream cards for a while, so it's going to be just a 4/12 initially, which is going to be quite hard to play a lot of the time without you just losing immediate tempo on board or just taking too much face damage, for instance. And then when you draw the dragons from the Dream Portal, they're going to be summoned with Summoning Sickness, so you're not going to be able to attack with them until the turn after. So this card is super, super slow. Ideally, the cards that you do get will have Taunt or Rush. Not many dragons like that now. There are a few in this set which do have immediate impact that we'll talk about later. But yeah, super slow card. I mean, if you got to the end of your deck, which does tend to happen in Druid, it is a lot of stats, but to me it seems like you might be better off doing something like King Phaeroris as a stat dump than Ysera Unleashed, and Ysera Unleashed just seems like it's too slow. Breath of Dreams. 2 mana, draw a card. If you're holding a dragon, gain an empty mana crystal. So Wildgrowth's back, and it's giving you draw a card as well. So you don't even need to get to 10 mana this time to get that option. Seems pretty good. One caveat of this card is that you do need the dragon in hand, and if we remember like Dragon Priest and stuff, there were instances when you wouldn't have, by turn 2, the dragon in hand a lot of the time. You do need to run quite a lot of dragons to get this active, which is probably going to be the case, but don't just think this is just a better Wildgrowth, because a lot of the time you're not going to be able to activate it on turn 2, which may be a problem. Emerald Explorer, 6 mana 4/8 dragon, taunt, Battlecry, discover dragon. So this is great to get off Ysera Unleashed because it has taunt and you have to deal with it. 6 mana 4/8 taunt isn't the worst stats in the world, and you get to fulfill a couple of things. First being it is a dragon for your dragon deck, and second, it's a lot of value. You're not going to run out of resources with this card, and it's defensive, so when you have high value cards, it's really good if they're defensive as well, because you can get away with playing them in like the aggressive tempo matchups as well. So this seems like a very good card in dragon style druid decks. The only thing is whether they're going to be good. Like, you wouldn't run this card in Quest Druid, for example, which is the dominant version of Druid right now. Next, Hunter. Hunter got a lot of button clicking cards. Dragonbane is the legendary 4 mana 3/5 mech. After you use your hero power, deal 5 damage to a random enemy. Similar to Ragnaros' effect, dealing 5 versus 8. You do need to invest the mana of the hero power to use it. Very much a cheaper card than Ragnaros, but you do need to press the button every turn. You can manipulate the RNG of it, like by taking value trades into their smaller things and isolating bigger targets for you to be able to hit with Dragonbane. Or, you know, completely clear their board and then use Dragonbane to push face damage with the effect as well. It seems pretty strong. You can use it with Galvanizer to make it even cheaper. You can draw it with Ursatron as well. If it's a very powerful card, you can use that to tutor this as well. Toxic Reinforcements, 1 mana, side quest. Use your hero power 3 times. Reward, summon 3 leper gnomes. Smork, smork, smork. So that's like a total of 12 damage. As long as you play this on 1, and then keep hero powering, you'll get the leper gnomes eventually. Tempo-wise, it's obviously really, really bad. But this is a card that you might want to play in some sort of face-style deck, because it is a lot of damage for 1 mana. And you're going to be using your hero power anyway in that sort of deck. The caveat is that you do need to play this before you start using the hero power. Face decks tend to want to play for tempo early on as much as they can, and then finish out with the hero power. This kind of card, it might be actually quite hard to fit in the 1 mana. So don't be surprised if this card's actually quite bad. Phase Stalker, 2 mana, 2/3 beast. After you use your hero power, cast a secret from your deck. So comparisons, River Croc or Mad Scientist perhaps. A bit more expensive than Mad Scientist. You do have to invest the mana in the hero power. Okay, turn 4 play going 2/3 plus the hero power to get the secret out. It seems like a decent card. These sort of effects where your opponent is inclined to kill it so you don't get repetitive value from it really bolster a card's competitive viability. If you look at things like Underbelly Angler, that's only a 2/3 as well, but it's a massive threat that requires being dealt with. This is not quite on the same level as that card, but I expect this is an okay-ish card. You probably see play in some Reno decks or some Secret Beast Hunter decks. Corrosive Breath, 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion. If you're holding a dragon, it also hits the enemy hero. If you meet the requirement, dealing 3 to them as well is like, I'd say it's pretty good. But dragon decks, historically at least, weren't very good at being tempo face sort of decks. They're more like, I would say, mid-rangey, going towards late game style decks, and this kind of effect's not the best in those. Although it's powerful enough that it might be good, and you can, with this card in your deck, you can transition towards a face style endgame, which is always great when you're playing Hunter. Next, Dwarven Sharpshooter, 1 mana, 1/3. Your hero power can target minions. So seems pretty decent. There was a Steam-wheeled Sniper, I think it was called, something like that, back in, I think it was Goblins vs Gnomes, which was a 2 mana, 2/3 version of this card. And that card was very, very hyped up, and it turned out to not be very good at all, because actually 2 mana deal 2 with your hero power wasn't that great of a turn a lot of the times. When this is on a 1 mana card, the effect's a bit more powerful. 1 mana, 1/3 is premium stats for a 1-drop. Pretty good, I'd say this card is. 2 damage to a minion isn't always that relevant, especially when there's so many lackeys and stuff right now that you might not want to be pinging things. And if you have this thing on board as a 1 mana, 1/3, you probably don't want to be pinging on your turn, because this is so good at trading into low health targets anyway. You can just take a value trade and develop. So while this seems like a really, really strong effect, I don't think it's actually that good. It might just be a decent 1-drop for the body, I would say. Primordial Explorer, 3 mana, 2/3, Poisonous Dragon, Battlecry, discover a dragon. Holy value. 2 mana, 2/3, Poisonous for 3 is an Emperor Cobra, which is pretty bad card on its own, but the Discover a Dragon is just a lot of value with this. I think it's a fairly good effect. It's going to let you go towards the late game quite a lot with this card. Seems pretty nice to me. And if it becomes a sort of dragonish metagame, the poison effect's going to be very, very powerful, because there's going to be a lot of big creatures around. So having poisonous minions is good. Seems like a pretty good 3-drop. Mage, Malygos, Aspect of Magic, 5 mana, 2/8 dragon, so big butt on it. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, discover an upgraded mage spell. So upgraded mage spells, we can have a look here. This is some examples. 1 mana Polymorph, which is super good tempo. That seems like a premium one that you want to get. Malygos Internet, draw 4 cards. I feel like this one is really, really slow. Deal 8 as well. It's not that much better than the Fireball. This Polymorph one seems just a lot better than the other two, in my opinion. Yeah, a lot of spells. It remains to be seen what all the other ones do, but this card seems pretty powerful. Expect this card to be very, very good. Azure Explorer, 4 mana, 2/3, Battlecry, discover a dragon. So similar to the Hunter one we saw, but this one has the effect of spell damage +2. Actually, in standard right now, there's a 4 mana, 4/3 with this effect, and it's mostly used for the spell damage. Obviously, a 4/3 is quite a lot better than a 2/3. This is going to get value traded a lot easier. Sometimes you could just play the 4 mana 4/3 on board and have it contest stuff. This is not going to be the case, but you're compensated by having this be a dragon, and you're compensated by discovering a dragon as well. So this is going to allow you to transition towards late game a bit better. This card opens up cards like Shooting Star. One of the problems with like Tempo Mage decks with the Shooting Star things is that they run out of gas really quickly. And when you remove Mana Worm as a viable card, those sort of decks really suffered. But the Shooting Star thing was still quite good. If you can have a sustainable deck, it's just a very good tempo tool to use. So this might be quite good in that specific deck because the combo is quite strong. 1 mana, learn Draconic. I imagine that's how it's pronounced. Side quests, spend 8 mana on spells. So side quests are like quests, but you complete them within the game, and I'm assuming you don't get this card in your opening hand either. The reward for this one is summon a 6/6 dragon. So this kind of effect I really love. This is something that Hearthstone hasn't really explored too well, is that banking early mana to go for swing turns later. Weapons are a great example of that. You can play a weapon on turn 2 and not swing, but then you have that additional tempo which you don't have to spend mana on your future turns. And this is as a similar effect. You spend your 1 mana early, and you take a tempo hit maybe early on slightly, but you go for a bigger swing turn later on, and the swing turn on this is going to be very big. You play this on one of the early turns and then go for like a blizzard, and it's probably completed from that, and you get a 6/6 on the board as well. Something that Mage does right now on the early turns is like pass turn 1, ping turn 2, and then maybe like draw cards on turn 3. So like in terms of tempo, they're perfectly happy of not doing anything right now and then going for the swing turns later. And this card's really going to bolster that sort of strategy. And I expect this card's going to be very good, because the swing turns that it's going to provide are going to be very huge. And expect Mages to play this card, blizzard you, summon a 6/6, and if you can't deal with a 6/6, expect your board to get frozen constantly, and you're just going to die. Next, Paladin. Nozdormu the Timeless, 4 mana 8/8. They went +1/+1 on the meme. Battlecry, set each player to 10 mana crystals. Now, I'm not sure how this works in that if you play this card, do you have another 10 mana to spend afterwards? That seems like it can't be the case, otherwise this card would be completely broken. It doesn't say empty mana crystals either. So, I don't know, do you gain any mana from playing this, or do you actually just play it for 4 mana and then you have empty crystals up to 10? I'm not sure. It seems like that will be the case because the stats are really compensating for something, and the thing they're compensating for is the fact that your opponent has a 10 mana turn before you do, right? 4 mana 8/8. You play it and then your opponent has a 10 mana turn before you. Yeah. Maybe it's okay. Sounds like it's potential disastrous though. Sand Breath. 1 mana, give a minion +1/+2. Give it Divine Shield if you're holding a dragon. So there's already a basic card, I believe, Hand of Protection in Paladin, which is give a Divine Shield. So this is a straight upgrade on that if you have the requirement of the dragon. +1/+2 is a fine buff, and the Divine Shield seems like a solid tempo play. It does kind of require you to have minions on board, and dragon decks tend to be quite slow. So this kind of effect, you'd rather have it in a tokeny style deck, I think, rather than a dragon one. But if there's cards in your deck, it might make your opponents inclined to trade into your dragons, which means you're gaining something by the threat of this, right? If you're playing a bunch of dragons, which tend to be really well statted minions but quite slow, and your opponent is inclined to trade into them because you risk or you threaten playing Sand Breath on them, then suddenly the stats of your dragons are a lot more impactful. There's a 5 mana 3/5 in Paladin which hand buffs dragons, so potential here for Sand Breath to enable dragon decks to be a lot better just from the threat of it. But your opponent might just ignore them anyway. Priest, and our first look at Galakrond the Unspeakable. This is a 7 mana hero card, and I believe all the evil classes are going to have access to a version of this. They're all fairly different. All 7 mana will give the 5 armor, but they have different effects and different hero powers. The Priest one is Battlecry, destroy 1 random enemy minion. This is invoke twice to upgrade. I thought they were all invoke once. That makes them way worse in my mind. I was going on the invoke once, but yeah, invoke twice to upgrade. Okay, so destroy one random enemy minion, probably goes to 2, and then I think it'll go up to like maybe all enemy minions or 4 enemy minions, and then it'll have probably some other effect as well. The hero power is add a random priest minion to your hand, which is very, very slow. And some of these invoke cards are quite slow as well. So it's quite nice to have this big AoE clear when all your other players are slow, because you're definitely going to fall behind on board. The hero power itself is anti-tempo, which is quite bad, I would say. Like, Dr. Boom's very powerful because it gives you just a lot of tempo when you play it because of the rush effect and because of the hero power itself is very mana efficient. I think the actual effect on the battle cry of Galakron is very good, but the hero power seems quite bad to me. The battle cry reminds me a bit of Anduin, but the hero power is so much worse than Anduin's one. We'll have to see the fully upgraded effect of this card to see how good it is. Fate Weaver battle cry, if you've invoked twice, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. So we were just talking about how this seems very, very slow tempo. But if you're adding a bunch of cards to your hand, something that reduces their cost, all the cards in your hand by 1 is pretty good. 4 mana 3/6 is decent stats for a dragon on 4. I imagine it's quite hard to play this on curve while invoking, especially as Priest's only revealed invoke card so far costs 5. So this card's more of a late game effect, similar to Emperor Thurusum. Bit cheaper, but it's not repetitive. But it also is a battle cry rather than end of the turn. So like you could do something like start your turn with this on 10 mana and then play a bunch of other stuff as well, which is something you can't do with Emperor Thurusum. It seems like a very, very strong card, but it's a late game card. You're not going to be looking to play this on turn 4 a lot of the time unless you're against like an aggro deck and you're just forced to play it for its body. Seems pretty powerful. Time Rip, 5 mana, destroy a minion and invoke Galakron. So whenever you invoke, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this yet, it activates the Galakron's hero power. So this card essentially reads destroy a minion, add a random priest minion to your hand for 5, which isn't too bad of an effect. It's expensive, it's an assassinate, but it's good value and it ramps you towards your endgame goal, which is the Galakron. So, you know, it obviously goes in the deck. Seems fairly good as a card. And if dragons are meta, then destroy a minion effect goes up in value because there's a lot of big minions around. For Rogue, they have their Galakron. Battlecry, draw 1 card, it costs 0. Invoke twice to upgrade. Now, the hero power is add a lackey to your hand. Priest's Galakron, I was talking about how it's very much an anti-tempo late game option. This one feels like it's very high on tempo. As you're invoking throughout the game, you're adding lackeys to your hand rather than random priest minions, and lackeys are pretty good for tempo for the most part, so when you're invoking early on, you're not going to fall as far behind. And when you do this effect, I believe the upgraded version is draw 4 cards, they all cost 0, and it equips a 5/2 weapon. That turn is just going to be super powerful. It's like you've played Toggle's Treasure for the Wand and played the Wand and got an extra card in hand and got a 5/2 weapon. That seems very, very powerful. This is going to be a huge tempo turn whenever you play it. The only question is whether you fall too far behind by doing all this invoking stuff early on. You have to invoke this 4 times to upgrade it fully, I believe. Once to upgrade it once to 2, and then another time to 4. So playing 4 invoke cards to get the full effect of this is likely not going to be happening before turn 7 in most of your games. It's going to be much later on. You might even be forced to play this card without the full effect. The hero power, add a lackey to your hand. It's not going to carry you in the late game, I don't think. Lackeys are good, but when you're spending 3 mana for each one, they're a lot worse. We have the Rogue Legendary, Waxadread. 5 mana 7/5 dragon. Death Rattle, shuffle a candle into your deck. That resummons Waxadread when drawn. So, potential infinite card. It's got a very aggressive stats, which mean people do want to kill it. So you might get the shuffle train going a lot quicker. in the very, very late game if this card goes unanswered, which is pretty unlikely. I imagine if this card gets meta, people are going to take in silence cards into their decks or transform effects, that sort of thing. I think if it's a tempo-y meta, I think this card's probably not that good though. It's gonna not happen often enough. The Death Rattle isn't really immediate effect, it's a bit RNG heavy, and in most games you're not going to be drawing the one candle from this card very often. This almost reminds me of the 4 mana 4/4 that Rogue had, which shuffled spiders into your deck, which was a good card, I'd say. It didn't see it play in a lot of decks, but in the Miracle Rogue decks where they drew a lot of cards, it was quite good. But that shuffled 3 cards into your deck. This is effectively the same thing, but it's on a Death Rattle. Yes, the stats are better. It's more expensive though. It's on a Death Rattle, so you don't get the immediate potential high roll of drawing a thing, and it's only 1 shuffle rather than 3. So this seems like a worse version of that 4 mana 4/4 that I forget the name of right now. Umbral Skulker, 4 mana 3/3 Battlecry. If you've invoked twice, add 3 coins to your hand. So this card seems super powerful. Invoking twice before turn 4 is potentially possible in Rogue because they have a 3 mana card and a 1 mana card as their class evoke cards. So you might be able to get this off on curve sometimes. And adding 3 coins to your hand is super, super powerful. It's a lot of tempo, which is what you want when you have such a powerful end game tool, is you want to be able to keep up in tempo in the early games. You can even do stuff like with Edwin's and Gadgetsons, all the old Miracle stuff really gets boosted by coins, and 3 coins is so much. If you remember Tomb Pillager, that was a really, really good card for 4 mana. This is stat-wise quite a bit worse. 3 coins is better than 1. Next we have Dragon's Horde. Discover a legendary minion from another class. So another potential Burgle activator. And I mean, this helps test because it'll give you probably quite a strong minion to drop onto board. But the thing with legendary minions, especially the ones now, is a lot of them are synergy based in classes. You know, if you're discovering something like a Kragwa, you could maybe meme with Shadow Step that way, but in terms of tempo, the card you're playing is going to be pretty bad a lot of the time. So I don't think this card's that great. I mean, it does activate Burgle stuff, which maybe helps you recover tempo, but for the most part, probably not that good. Might see play if test decks are a thing, but they're probably mostly going to be meme decks. Next, Seal Fate. Deal 3 damage to undamaged character. Invoke Galakrond. So the hero power is add a lackey. So this is like deal 3, add a lackey, random lackey to your hand, but it has to be an undamaged character. Backstab's deal 2 for 0, which is a great card. There was a card similar to this, which was 3 mana, deal 5 to an undamaged character. And that card was like okay. Maybe saw players a one-off sometimes. It was never like a staple of Rogue decks at the time. Rogue already has access to really good removal options in Vendetta and stuff, so this is certainly a step below. Getting the lackey is nice, I'll give you that. And obviously you want to go for your invoke stuff for Galakrond, so you do need to play this card if you're going for a Galakrond deck, but the card itself isn't that strong, I don't think. And I do think the restriction of undamaged is actually quite a big deal, especially when the damage this deals isn't very much. So you kind of want to one-shot a minion with it, but it's not going to happen very often. Candle Breath. Draw 3 cards, costs 3 less while you're holding a dragon. So if you're going for your dragon deck with Wax of Dread, you do want to be drawing a lot of cards because you want to have a higher chance of redrawing this candle. And this is certainly going to help. 3 mana, draw 3 is quite a big deal. So this is like a better Arcane Intellect when you have the dragon. 3 mana, draw 3. Bit less consistent. Seems okay. I'm not sure if Dragon Rogue is something you really want to be doing. I mean, a lot of their cards have been revealed. There's only a few left. They probably have another dragon in here, which might change things. But yeah, I'm not really digging the Dragon Rogue, to be honest. And I think even if this card is quite powerful in that deck, I think just tempo-wise, Dragon Rogue seems quite bad. 1 mana, praise Galakrond. Give a minion +1 attack, invoke Galakrond. So this is 1 mana, add a random lackey to your hand, and give a minion +1 attack. I actually kind of think this card might even be better if it didn't have the give a minion +1 attack, because you're not going to be able to actually play this card on an empty board. There's a Warlock spell which discovers a lackey, which is a pretty good card. This obviously has the effect of bolstering your Galakron, but in terms of your curve on games, you'd be pretty happy to play this on turn 1, I think, to get the random lackey. But you're not going to be able to do that, or you might have to buff your opponent's minion to do so, which I think is going to be quite a big downside for when you're playing this card. I think you can't play it unless there's a minion to buff, because you can't do that things with like Blessing of Might and stuff, but maybe the Invoke changes that rule. But as it stands, if I'm interpreting correctly, this is actually a lot more awkward to play than you might think. Shaman. Only one card revealed so far, and it's a doozy. Lightning Breath, 3 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion. If you're holding a dragon, also damage its neighbors. Hailed as the 3 mana Flame Strike. Seems very, very powerful. If we're in a lackey heavy meta, it's not as good, but I imagine this is going to be good. It's going to force people to think about positioning as well, which is always a nice thing. A little bit of edges to be gained there if you position correctly. Super Collider was a really skill testing card in that sense as well, and this is very similar. Seems very, very powerful. Even if it hits 2 minions, it's going to be quite good. Cheaper and more powerful multi-shot, for example. So I think this is going to be a very, very good card. And it makes Shaman one of the most appealing dragon classes, even though no dragons for them have been revealed so far. That's how powerful it seems. Warlock, Galakron the Wretched. 7 mana Battlecry, summon 1 random demon, invoke twice to upgrade. And the hero power is summon 2 1/1 imps. So, kind of like Odd Paladin hero power. The tempo swing of summoning what I assume is going to be 4 random demons when it's upgraded to its full potential, plus whatever else it does, is quite a good turn for 7 mana, but it is just a bunch of stats. You might have a hard time doing it if you're under a lot of pressure, which you may be. It's a big tempo swing, but against control decks, when you do play this, they're going to have an AoE for it. The hero power, Galakron's Malice, it does synergize with their invoke cards in that you spread super wide. So you can imagine, like, as a late game with this deck, you just keep hero powering all the time, and eventually, like, you Fiendish Rites your board up, and it's, +1 attack for the entire board. It's pretty powerful. I think late game wise, this Warlock one is actually quite good. It can be very, very hard to stop decks from going really, really wide all the time, as we saw from Odd Paladin. This comes online way later, but is potentially very good. You can put cards like Demon Bolt into your deck as well, which is going to allow you to get a lot of tempo swings later on. Veiled Worshipper, 4 mana 5/4, Battlecry. If you've invoked twice, draw 3 cards. Very, very strong card. You can even just play this without the Battlecry effect if you have to. A lot of the time, it's just got good stats. So that's a big plus for it, I'd say. If you do get off, drawing 3 is pretty nutty. It's just going to find you a lot of resources. And if we have like tempo tools in our deck like Demon Bolt, drawing those is going to really help you tempo-wise later on. The invoke cards that they got didn't seem too strong to me. Dragonblight Cultist, 3 mana 1/1, Battlecry, invoke, and gain +1 attack for each other friendly minion. So I imagine because of the hero power coming out, this is going to be at least a 3/1 with the 2 1/1s that you summon alongside it. And because Galakron's hero power is a tempo one, you get immediate tempo from it. Invoking in the early game is going to be much better for this deck than I think it will be for the Rogue, and especially for the Priest, because invoking for Priest early on is just, it's like you're pretty much doing nothing, to be honest. But for this Warlock, getting the 2 1/1's quite nice. This minion itself isn't that great. 3/1/1, a 3/1 and 2 1/1s for 3 mana is acceptable, I'd say. Fiendish Rites, similar effect. It's really, it's kind of like a late game Odd Paladin, what Warlock's looking like going forward with all this spread wide stuff. This is at the very least Fiendish Rites. I imagine they become at least two 1s with this effect, and if you have anything else on board, it's going to help that as well. Warrior, Deathwing, Mad Aspect, 8 mana 12/12, Battlecry, attack all other minions, so including your own, which is a bit of a downside. Like you can't really play this when you're ahead. because it's just too bad. Hurting your own stuff. Sort of similar to Deathwing, is where you didn't really want to play it when you're ahead. And this one doesn't discard your hand at least, so it's a bit more playable, it's a bit cheaper. If your opponent has a big board, it might act like a Twisting Nether, but Divine Shield is actually really bad for this because you'll only attack it once. If they got any poisonous minions on board as well, this is super bad. I don't think it's actually that good. A lot of the time this thing dies, or is very, very weak after it's done its effect. But if they have only like a couple of minions on board, it is very, very good tempo. 8 mana for 12/12 with effectively Rush, Wind Fury or something. Or you can even compare it to something like Batterhead. It can be very, very strong in a slow style of deck. So it might be okay. Molten Breath. Deal 5 damage to a minion if you're holding a dragon, gain 5 armor. Now this effect is very, very, very powerful. This is like Shield Block, Shield Slam, all in one card. And Shield Block, Shield Slam is one of the most staple things of Control Warrior decks, and it's always very, very powerful when it comes down. So, although you can't go above the 5, which you can with Shield Slam, and you can't just Shield Block on 3 and Shield Slam later, the cards rolled into one is a really, really powerful effect, I think. And this card is super strong. Kind of similar. It's like Warlock's Lifesteal Spellstone that they had, similar to that almost. And like you could even do this and a Shield Slam on the same turn. Really good card. Neutral cards now. Rovar. 9 mana 5/5 Battlecry. Choose a friendly minion, add a copy of it to your hand, deck, and battlefield. So super value card. I mean, like a Faceless Manipulator that comes with a 5/5 in terms of tempo immediately, but you also get the extra value. The downside really is that it's quite hard to pull off its effect. It's 9 mana, so you do kind of need to have your minion already on the battlefield for the most part to pull this off. So, I mean, you could potentially run this in like Pocket Galaxy decks, because then it's way more easy to achieve the effect of it, but it seems quite hard otherwise. Devoted Maniac, 4 mana 2/2 Rush, Battlecry, Invoke. 4 mana deal 2. Not very good. Invoke as well. A lot better in Warlock. 2/2 plus 2/1/1s. This thing's got Rush as well. And it's like almost a playable card, plus it's getting you towards your late game things. In Priest, seems really, really bad. In Rogue, again, not too bad. I mean, a lot of these Invoke cards just seem best in Warlock because it's just the hero power's a tempo tool. Yeah, I mean, you might play it. Evasive Draconid, 7 mana, 7/7 Taunt. Dragon, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, so a defensive dragon, which is great. The can't be targeted by spells thing won't come into play a lot of the time now, but you could see us going into a meta game where there is a lot of single target removal spells. If Rogue's really popular, like Sap doesn't work on this. They have quite a hard time getting through this potentially. So the can't be targeted is pretty nice when it's combined with the Taunt, to be honest, because they can't really just ignore it. If Priest's a thing, Time Rip doesn't work on it, Death doesn't work on it, so the card actually might be quite good, I'd say. Like these two effects on a big body are very strong when they're all bundled together like this, and it is a dragon. So I think this is deceptively good. It is a bit expensive. Like if we're still in a minion lackey meta game, this card's way worse. Shield of Galakrond, 5 mana 4/5 Taunt, Battlecry, Invoke Galakrond. You're probably going to need to play this card to just to get your Galakrond going. Seems fine. Having Taunt's nice when you're playing a slow deck because you don't take as much face damage. Twin Tyrant, 8 mana 4/10. Battlecry, deal 4 damage to 2 random enemy minions. I don't know if this works if they've only got 1 minion. Like, it'll probably do at least 4 to it. I don't think it'll do 4 to it twice, but it might do. Seems very expensive for the effect. You'll probably pick this one off some of your Discover a Dragon options, but probably not run it in your deck because it's so expensive. And finally, there's a new lackey, Battlecry Discover Dragon. I think this is probably weaker than all the other lackeys right now. Lackeys are generally very, very good for tempo, and that's what you want to be running them for. At least with the spell one, it's not good tempo, but the spells that you get, you can choose a good tempo spell, because pretty much all spells are good for tempo, but dragons on the other hand are really slow. A lot of the time they're just going to be stats. You're going to have minions in your hand that you can play anyway, so this thing's really not going to help you a lot of the time in doing something that you can't already achieve, and in terms of tempo it's really bad. In the late game it is good though. Like, you want this Lackey if you're running out of steam, but for the most part it's going to be a nerf, I would say, to the Lackey pool. Alright, that's all the cards for now. There's a bunch to talk about there. Stay tuned for more reviews, and very excited about this new set. See you later.